And we are live. Welcome, folks, to episode 3379 of the Survival Podcast. It is Wednesday, September the 20th, 2023. And I've got some special guests hanging by right now, TD and Matt. Matt is the son. TD is the dad. They went carnivore a while ago, and it has improved. And this is what really hooked me into bringing them on as guests. Improved the health of their family. Well, I know that. But it also said they improved the health of their homestead and managed to take their homestead to cash flow positive. Now, if there's words that are going to excite me and get me interested in something, the phrase cash flow positive is one of those phrases. I don't care if it's your homestead, a rental property, anything that is cash flow positive that is also an asset is a damn good thing to have. We're going to have them on to talk about that and a whole bunch more in just a few moments. Before we do that, I want to remind you guys that my workshop, TSP-23, sold out in 4 minutes flat. So if you were like, because I got an email today, I'm planning on coming. Well, I'm sorry, I'll put you on the wait list because no, you're not. And I hate that. I don't say that to brag. I really hate that I have to tell people no, that I don't have more room, more space. But there's still an event that you can come meet me at. You can meet Joel Salatin at. You can meet Nicole Sauce at, John Willis at, and a bunch of other really freaking awesome people, like 500 people just like you. It's called the Self-Reliance Festival, and it is going to run October 14 and 15 is when I'll be there. There's also some pre-event workshops and some post-event workshops, like Zero to Hero with Ham Radio and Joel Salatin after the two-day event. We'll be teaching you how to process chickens. That's learning from the master himself. Oh, by the way, Joel will be there for those 2 days. You'll be able to meet Joel Salatin, the master himself of regenerative agriculture, kind of one of the real pioneers that started and kicked the whole thing off. And he's an amazing dude. And I'll say something for Joel here. There's a lot of people that are big names that come to events like this and they like kind of show up, talk to you for like 3 seconds and then just disappear. He's not one of those. He hangs out just like I and these other folks do. So if you want to come hang out with some really cool people, check out the Self-Reliance Festival. There is a link in the show notes below. And like I said, we definitely hang out and talk to everybody. But with that many people, you only get so much time. What if you wanted more time? What if you wanted, like some preferential parking and some other really cool perks? There's also VIP tickets available for the 14th and 15th. If you check out my website, thesurvivalpodcast.com, if you already have a ticket, you can upgrade. Or if you haven't bought a ticket yet, there are still some VIP tickets left. This is going to be awesome. You get to come to a special dinner and reception just with your fellow VIPs and the folks that are there as presenters. So you get a lot more time with us that way, smaller group, and an awesome meal as well. So check those out. Those VIP tickets are just badass. With that, let's go ahead and bring our special guests, and I did say guests on today, TD and Matt. Guys, welcome to the Survival Podcast.
Hey, Jack, thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
Very excited to be here.
Yeah.
I'm glad to have you guys here. I want to start out with, before we dig into the carnivore diet and your current homestead, what made you guys relocate to Texas? We were talking about a little bit of like the beauty and the hardship of Texas summers before this started. You guys live somewhere up in the northeastern United States, and about a decade ago, you guys relocated to Texas. And I imagine TD had more to say about that. Matt was much younger at the time, but you probably at least talked to him about it. What made you decide to make that? That's a big move.
So, and I'll credit you a little bit, because we were watching the YouTubes and listening to the podcast, and you talked all the time about walking to freedom.
Okay.
And we were studying like, hey, if we're going to make this radical change, we should put a lot of thought into it. And so we were heavily considering homeschooling laws, Second Amendment, general freedom, income tax. And those were kind of like the three big factors, and are part of the factors of why we didn't choose Tennessee and why we did choose Texas. We were even looking at Montana, which has some really weird laws about medical freedom and different things. But those were the major influencing factors on why we chose Texas.
And you guys are kind of in the northeastern portion of Texas. I know you maybe don't want to give away your exact location, but we were talking before, like you at least were smarter than me. You picked the part where it rains.
Yeah, it just rained an hour ago.
Yeah. And somewhere along the way, not only did you walk to freedom, you walked to a different diet choice, and you guys started living as carnivores. Why the carnivore diet?
Well, we first started out with a more whole foods diet, and we did that for a couple years. And then we had, my mom had a health scare with her thyroid, and you can probably explain that better. What happened?
Yeah, and it was very interesting because we have a YouTube channel. We were getting lots of comments, hey, your wife's throat looks swollen and different things. You should get that checked out. Well, we were getting hundreds of comments to the point where I had to like filter out the word. And so we went to a couple doctors. They both immediately looked like they were, like it was really bad. She had a bunch of imaging work done. They said, you need to get that thing cut out. So we went to MD Anderson. But prior to that, we started implementing different things like the Gerson therapy and a lot of plant-based and really refining our diet to try to come up with a solution.
Yeah.
And long story short,
that's when we cut out all sugars. We went gluten-free, dairy-free, and we were just strict whole foods. And then pretty much we're just straight vegans.
Yeah, pretty much plant-based.
Plant-based 100%.
And what became very frustrating about that was I'm like, man, I still kind of feel old. Well, I always chalked it up as just being old. Well, I'm 47. I guess this is what being old is like. It just sucks, And it was so frustrating just not sleeping.
Not having the energy.
I developed this shoulder condition, which spread into my neck and back. And come to find out, that was just like a arthritic condition, and it created all these issues with my shoulder. But then about a little over 100 days ago, my wife had been doing a lot of research and reading, and another Homestead channel, Homestead How, started posting a lot about the carnivore diet and all the tremendous health benefits he was having. And she came to me and she was like, hey, how about we try this as a family? And I'm like, yeah, if everybody's on board, let's do it. And it has been incredible. I mean, the health benefits,
100%.
Sleep.
Because your shoulder went from you literally couldn't even use it at all to now you can do 45, 50 push-ups in a row.
Yeah.
And it's it's healing up incredibly well.
It continues to improve.
And you have zero pain, and now you can actually sleep all the way through the night.
Yeah.
Because you've never been able to actually do that. You would wake up several times throughout the night, go through several weeks of not sleeping at all, and just really, really bad.
Yeah. It's been transformative for all of us. For my wife, who neither of us were ever overweight, but I lost about 10 pounds. She lost about 30 pounds. Yeah. We would always exercise obsessively. And no real success with that. And
the other scary thing about the whole plant-based diet and being a vegan and everything is you are super reliant on grocery stores and Amazon and buying all these products and all of these pills and supplements and everything and protein powders and stuff. But we were like, what we're really good at is growing beef. This is beef country up here in Northeast Texas. It is it's easy to do it. And I mean, our grocery bill practically went down to zero, only for a couple, for mainly butter. We do buy butter now, and occasionally bacon. But other than that, and maybe some barbecue sauce here and there. Rarely we even use barbecue sauce.
Yeah.
Normally it's just butter, salt, and I use a little tiny bit of pepper.
Yeah.
And electrolytes. We do buy that. But we pretty much went from 20% self-sufficient to about, for our food, almost pretty much 98 to 100% self-sufficient, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's funny the way some people react to this. I had a guy email me recently, and I found this to be comical and sad. He's like, if you're eating carnivore, and I'm 90% carnivore. I eat some vegetables once in a while. Tomatoes, peppers, and greens is 90% of that. He's like, how does your blood sugar not go to zero? I'm like, oh my God, crack a biology textbook, right? So I told him about gluconeogenesis, which is basically your body makes carbs on demand if it needs any, and you don't need very many. And I challenged him to go find me an essential carbohydrate. He didn't know what that meant, right? So I'm like, okay, so there are essential proteins, meaning your body cannot manufacture those proteins and you must consume them or you don't get them and you will die eventually. First, you'll malnourish and then you'll die. There are essential fats that you cannot manufacture that you must obtain from your diet. And if you do not get them, you will die. It won't be overnight, but you will. Show me a single carbohydrate in any form that if I don't get it, I will get sick and or die. And then he got very angry. Very, very angry because facts don't have feelings and that makes people upset. But the idea that your blood sugar would go to zero, I'm like, there's literally millions of people doing this, and I've never seen anybody with a blood sugar issue that's on a carnivore diet. I have seen people with blood sugar issues that are on carbohydrate diets, either very high or very low or giant. More often, it's these huge swings. And that causes like all kinds of problems. I remember before I did it, like I would be out and I didn't eat a certain amount of time. All of a sudden I start blowing sweat. I'm like, I got to eat. And that is just, there's no way that's healthy.
Nope. And it just really, it took off. And then the other thing that happened almost simultaneously is we found a great microprocessor very close to us that had a very flexible schedule, and they could get our cows in and out, and they would text us back and forth. It was so great. And we said, hey, if it's this simple and easy and this small family processing plant, if they can do this for us, we could probably offer our beef to our subscribers,
our community,
to our
local community.
And it just exploded. And here we are, here we're in Northeast Texas, and I do have about 400 fruit trees. Fruit trees are kind of like my thing. I love it, grafting and all that cool stuff. And then we've always tried to grow these gardens. And of course, during the Rona scare, you're trying to grow like a garden to feed like an army of 1,000 people.
Well, especially when we were plant-based too.
Right. Well,
so well, now you got it, right? Yeah.
It was an uphill battle. I mean, we were never going to win. I mean,
and we never really, we always did okay, and we never really succeeded. We did better with hugelkultur raised beds, but it was so discouraging and frustrating because we're trying to develop this craft and feed ourselves, and we're eating and we still feel like crap, and we're not even really doing a good job at growing our own food.
Yeah, we were still getting sick every 30 days too. That was kind of the weird thing going into this year, eating only whole foods, no junk food whatsoever, and still getting sick on a 30-day cycle. It was the weirdest thing.
Very
not
strange.
like deathly sick, but just like this weird, like respiratory sickness, which just would really never go away. So,
and we didn't come from any kind of agriculture or agrarian background. We moved from a neighborhood. We moved down here basically to the middle of nowhere. And what I am so fascinated, we are in cattle country. If you drive in any direction, you will pass herd after herd. I drive about 40 minutes to work, and I'll probably pass 200 or 300 different cow farms,
ranches.
And most of these ranches, they may be vaccinating or whatever, but all these cows are being raised on grass. They are. They're not, there's no CAFOs, and most of these people are like died in the wool, like 70, 80 years old, and they're still raising cows. And it's such a powerful thing. And it's neat when we can tap into that. And, we've had up to a couple hundred Muscovies. We still have about 90 laying hens. And if you have the grass and the fence, raising a cow is by far,
hands down,
the easiest animal.
And that's coming from experience and like butchering hundreds of chickens and ducks. And it's like, while we're butchering them, we're like, we could butcher one cow. One
cow, right? Yeah.
And we could have hundreds of pounds of meat.
You have 100 pounds just of ground.
Ground
meat. You got 100 pounds of ground. Because I usually get 50 to 60 pounds when I buy a half beef of just the ground.
Just like, man. Yeah. So we were like, ditch it.
It's been a
We're
super
like-
game changer.
We're
It's
like,
been,
ditch it. We'll
yeah,
just butcher our own cows.
yeah.
If I had the space and the climate, I'd probably raise a few beef every year and a few
Yeah.
pigs. And then I
Yeah.
would sell the surplus kind of like you guys are doing. I just don't have land for it. And I really don't have, it's not that I don't have the climate for it. I don't have the piece of land in the climate that makes it doable because of how shallow my soils are here, and maintaining grass throughout the year is hard. But I will agree there. And I agree. Big animal that can take care of itself, you know, a mother cow, and you end up with, you know, especially if it's like one coyote, that coyote's going to get the shit kicked out of it.
Yeah.
Right. Right now I have a hawk that's picking off some of my Bantam chickens. I have too many Bantam chickens, so hopefully it's a migratory hawk and he can have a few on his way through. But you know, hawks and falcons don't eat cows. You know,
Nope.
I'm sure they would if they could, but they can't. So
Yeah.
well, right?
Yeah.
But meat in general it is the most nutrient dense and easiest thing you'll do. I would even say eggs too. I mean, like the bird, you open the door, the birds go do their thing. They go to bed at night. You pick the eggs up and you eat them.
And when we're using,
you don't weed them. You don't have to weed your eggs.
Yeah,
Nope.
no.
Yeah.
And we're using the lime method, and we were able to stock up 600 of our own eggs this year, and that got us through the Texas drought through the summer months when our hens pretty much stop laying. So it's almost like we get somebody's blowing up my phone. It's almost like we get two droughts for the hens during the year. It's
Same.
summer months and the winter months.
Same.
But then you got the fall and the spring where they really crank them out, and that's when we'll always have this surplus of eggs, and we're like, what are we going to do with them? And I think it's called water lime.
Yeah,
right.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And we used 3-gallon buckets, worked the best. We've tried 5 gallons, but I think they kind of get crushed in there a little bit.
Too big.
But we found that the 3-gallon buckets, and we got like 8 of them or so, and we put them in our pantry underneath, like on the bottom shelves where they'll be nice and dark. And we've had really good success with them. Really good success.
I've seen that method. I would do it if my wife
Water
didn't sell.
glassing. That's what it's called.
Yeah,
water
yeah. And
glassing.
it looks so simple. You mix lime, water, put the eggs in there, and then they're good.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
wife sells all the surplus eggs, so I don't
Okay.
actually get enough eggs for myself. So I'm not going to complain about money though, and the birds
Sure.
pay for themselves. But it seems like it also seems like the thing that is really more optimum for doing with chickens. Chicken eggs tend to be clean when you pick them up. Duck eggs, not so much.
Yeah.
So we end up washing the duck eggs. And of course, you don't want to wash the eggs if you're doing the lime thing. But I think that everybody in this audience, if you have that issue where you have like a surplus of eggs and then an egg drought, you need to look this up. The water glassing or liming eggs is another thing you'll find. It is so simple. And I've seen videos where people keep them a year and crack them to show you.
Yep.
Yep.
And there's nothing special about it. You said stick them in the pantry and don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And I think another thing people need to I think another thing people need to know with eggs, stop worrying about eating a bad egg. You won't do it. If you open an egg that has gone bad, you will your eyes and your nose will tell you don't eat that egg.
Yep.
Yeah. The only thing that I would say that's a little bit tricky with the water glassing is and if you have little kids, don't let them get them out of there, because if they accidentally drop it, we had it where then the egg drops and then it's game over. Yeah. So, you just have to be careful taking the egg out of there. Yeah.
Yeah. I've learned about little hands and eggs over the years. Throw eggs and drop eggs, and it's got it. Okay. You kind of mentioned some of your health benefits. Can you talk about maybe some other things like you've noticed, like just how you feel and all, but like you're not getting these 30-day cold cycles or anything anymore?
Yeah.
So I mean, with me, I have an arthritic condition in my shoulder, so that the head of my shoulder has shrunken like 40%. And what had happened, my labrum, I got about 30% of my labrum missing. So they went in there and cleaned it all out and took the scar tissue out.
Mm-hmm.
But it was loose and whatnot,
Yeah, it would clunk around.
And I knew that the scar tissue would come back, once they clean that all out, if there's still an issue there. So I had stem cell therapy done, my stem cell, and that was excellent for reducing the inflammation, but
Yep.
even that plateaus. So right when that was about to plateau, at that same time is when we started the carnivore diet.
Yeah.
And instead of plateauing, the inflammation has stayed gone. The pain has stayed gone. Prior to carnivore, I could not do a sissy push-up.
No. Also, they were telling you, the shoulder surgeon said, yeah, you just need a total shoulder replacement.
Yeah, four shoulder surgeons told me that.
Yep.
You need a total
He
replacement.
said your shoulder looks like you're an 80-year-old man.
Yeah.
You know. Yep.
So that has been miraculous. Sleep has
Yep.
been excellent. No type of I was hypoglycemic before. No type of sugar stable, like you were saying, how when you start to sweat and stuff and you need to eat, none of that. No getting up to go take a leak like 4 times a night. Actually sleeping, and if I do wake up, I fall back to sleep.
Yeah.
Energy level completely different. I didn't even, you hear a lot of people talk about brain fog, and I had never even considered it. I didn't think. Once again, I'm like, well, I guess that's getting old, right? I start the carnivore thing, and then I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I had like massive brain fog, and I didn't even realize it. And now that I'm eating meat-based, like, I'm not like, oh yeah, what's that basic word I use all the time that I'm trying to think of that I can't think of right now? And that totally went away. It was like it's very dramatic. That's why we always encourage, hey, just try it,
Yeah.
And the weird resistance to this
Proof is in the pudding.
when we're watching this gigantic push and people having all the successes, like, oh, are you planning to do this for the rest of your life? And
well,
what about your bowel movements?
I feel amazing, so why would I want to stop? I mean,
how are your bowel movements?
My favorite one is it's not sustainable.
Oh yeah,
it is
it's not sustainable. I'm like, okay, let's start out with, what do you mean?
Yeah,
by sustainable. Can we start with? Do you mean I can't keep doing it, or do you mean it's environmentally not sustainable? Because I can do both of those. But the first thing is you're throwing a word out, and I don't know if you know what you're saying, or that you heard somebody on a TikTok video say it, so you're parroting it because it entrenches your worldview. And usually what they mean is you can't keep doing it forever. And I'm like, well, there's millions of us who have been doing it for decades.
Yeah.
And we're all healthy. And all the doctors I see talking about how unhealthy it is, unless there's some kind of gym rat or something, they're all kind of pudgy and out of shape and whatever. Yeah. And the doctors that are doing it are like Sean Baker and Ken Berry and shit. And these guys are all in their 50s and 60s. And they look like me, not you. So I don't know that it's not sustainable that way.
Right.
Why, like you said, why would I quit? Like, so my health was shitty. Here, this is almost embarrassing, but I'll put it up anyway. This is a picture from me from right about the time that I started TSP. I was in my 30s in this picture.
Wow.
Yeah. Getty Images wants to charge people to use it. I don't think anybody's going to pay them for it. Unless someone wants to mock me or some shit, right? But that's what I looked like about 14 years ago. And so, am I going to keep doing this? Well, I don't want to fucking look like that again. Right, exactly. Right? Why the hell would I want to be that guy again? I certainly don't wish to be. Of course, I'm going to keep doing it. And, I've experienced a lot of what you guys are talking about with aches and pains. I had a pretty nasty shoulder injury when I was 19 years old in the Army. They wanted to do surgery on it. And I always was just really hesitant to let anybody cut into my body, especially that young. And it just was chronic and ongoing. Eventually I had arthritis as a 20-year-old. And I would go to bed and I'd lay in bed and I would have to sleep on my side. And honestly, on the side of the hurt arm because it wasn't stable. So by putting weight on it, it hurt less. But of course, now you're doing damage to it. And I couldn't lay on my back. If I woke up in the middle of the night and I was totally relaxed from sleeping, I could lay on my back. Now I go to sleep on my back. Like I can go sleep any way I want to. Like, and that's something I think if you've never experienced it, and I think there's people that probably don't even get it, even though they have the bad part of it. If you haven't experienced like not being able to sleep in certain positions and then have that go away, I don't know that you can appreciate it.
Nope, you cannot. I totally agree because that was me to a T. I could only sleep on my side. I favored the bad side for the same exact reasons. And all that did was make it worse.
Yeah.
That made the condition worse and it exacerbated it. And now I sleep on my back. I can actually sleep. Now, I will say this. A lot of people say that their snoring goes away. I still do occasionally snore. But as soon as I snore, I wake myself up. That's how I know that I snore. Yeah, just the dramatic improvement. And we were just on, they just did like a 24-hour live stream. Homestead How did this carnivore thing, and it had all these people with the testimonials and all that stuff. And I mean, it's fascinating. He's raising funds to do a documentary, right? And he's got Baker and Chafee and Dr. Barry. He's got all these doctors involved. And I can't get over the fact that people are just denying the scientific evidence and the accumulating data now. It almost kind of becomes like you just have to be willingly ignorant and you just want to have to embrace, I don't know, eating the bugs or something. I'm not exactly sure what the motivation.
I think science has lost all credibility, so I'm not surprised. I was surprised prior to the COVIDs, but since then I'm not surprised by anything the scientific community does, no matter how ridiculously in the face it is. And I'm waiting for somebody. I'm hoping Ken will do it. What I want to see is somebody do a documentary where they get they do this thing where they put the people in the house and lock them in and say, this is all you get. And, take like 6-8 people who really need to do it. People that are anywhere from 50 pounds to a couple 100 pounds overweight. Do all their labs, take it to some doctors and say, what would you recommend for this patient? And, not just the labs only, how old they are, their height, weight, all of it. And then say, well, what do you think about putting this person on a carnivore and or keto diet? And then let them go off. And then just go, already have done it. And have 120 days in the lab work for the same people and go, well, what do you think of this lab work? And let them go on and say, well, these are the same 6 people you just said shouldn't. And this is what they did. Right.
Exactly.
And I think we'd end up having to blur faces because they wouldn't want to be on record with it, because I think it would, because I know myself, my lab work was my doctor's you're screwed. You're going to be on freaking statins and other shit for the rest of your life. And I'm just not doing that. And I made this decision. And like you said, I'm not going back. Why? And that's the thing. I've met so many people. Well, I was vegan. I've not met a lot of people. I was carnivore. I was keto. And if I do, they're people that they never really were. Their entitled keto life was making cheese balls or something like that and fake bread or whatever. And I'm get off of that. If that's what you need to transition over, if that's what gets you started, okay. But your goal needs to get to is clean 1-ingredient foods.
What's the other beauty of this way of eating is it's self-rectifying, because when you go off of it, you immediately feel terrible. And so you're just I just had an interview on our podcast, the Fearless podcast. And it was Simeon, and he quoted Michaela Peterson. I think it's a Michaela Peterson quote. And she said, nothing tastes as good as feeling great, feeling healthy feels. And I'm like, that is it in an absolute nutshell, because you're when you go to cheat and eat the tiramisu or whatever, and then you do it and you're because I'm I know I'm going to feel like crap.
Yep.
I'm going to feel like trash, and I'm going to pay the piper for this. And then you're yeah, I'm not doing it. Now, if it's superly awesome, incredible tiramisu, maybe you will do it. But if it's marginal, you're yeah, I'm never doing it.
Yeah. So, and what I think is interesting is how little you need to do with things to make them amazing. So this weekend, I was doing a bunch of stuff to get ready for my workshop, and I'm doing pork loins, and we're sous videing those so my chef can bust them into chops and give everybody a 1-inch center cut pork chop for one of the lunches and stuff like that. And I took a piece of one of the loins and did a tide roast with it and smoked it. And I was making some stuff called pastrama out of beef. So I had some eye of rounds, and I took the fat caps off the eye of rounds. And I'm pork loin dries out. So I threw the fat cap from the beef on top of the pork loin and let it go for a while. And then I pulled it off after and let it kind of render. And we were supposed to eat the pork loin for dinner. we ate it the next day because this is what we ended up doing. We just took the fat caps off the eye round. And for those that are in the video version of this, if you look at that, my wife and I ate that and we were done. Like, we didn't want to eat anything else. It was like, that's like 70% fat and like 30%, you know, the little bit of red that came off with the fat caps because I was in a hurry and didn't do my best work. But it was kind of like eating instant beef bacon.
Yeah.
And the satiating effect of meat and fat is something that I think most people don't understand. Because, like, we have a question. I'll hit it right now. Hogus says, can you cover carnivore snacks to help eliminate night hunger? If you do this and you stick to it, you guys tell me if I'm wrong. You won't have night hunger.
Nope.
But don't drink at night either. If you start drinking booze, then you will, right? Like, that's
And one thing that I did for a sleep cheat is I would just do a little chunk of butter.
Yeah.
And it's just, and the other thing,
away.
We're not super hardcore. You know, I use honey. So
we do use honey. We do drink coffee, and we do have frozen berries.
Yeah. But I would do just a drop of honey on a butter cube, and you eat that, and it's almost like caramel. It's just so good. And that makes sure that I'm solid all the way through.
The other thing too that we'll do is we will do like a bowl full of blueberries or something like that too.
Yeah.
If you're just feeling like you just need to have something and you just got done dinner. Most of the time though, if you got done dinner and you still feel hungry, it means you didn't have enough fat in your dinner. So that's normally
and you will be amazed. Okay, so if you've never eaten like this, you will be amazed. 1, how you crave the fat. 2, how delicious it tastes. 3, how inordinately satisfying
it's like your brain turns on.
It's like everything changes.
I think the other thing too is people get desensitized to how terrible they actually feel. So they're like, oh, I don't feel that bad eating normal whole foods.
That is so true.
Why would you go carnivore? That sounds stupid. You're like, no, seriously, you don't understand. Like, once you actually try it for like over 30 days, you're like, you actually realize how terrible you actually were feeling, and your mood swings and everything were on the normal whole foods organic diet was.
And I'll prove it to you. Go to a high quality, whole food store. Like, we have a couple, Jack's or one of these natural food stores. What you're going to see is you're going to see shelves of processed stuff in bags.
Yeah.
Right. With 20, 30, 40 ingredients. Right.
Yep.
And that's where all your money's going. And you think because it says it's healthy and it's natural and it's organic, it's still
There's
super
a picture of a farm on it.
Yeah, exactly. It's all marketing.
It says,
and it's
USDA,
very expensive.
USDA organic on it. So
Yeah.
Also, the other thing is, there's a lot of people that are like, oh, I couldn't ever afford that. Actually, yes, you could. If you would stop going to Starbucks and getting crackers and cheeses and all these little stupid foods, you could totally afford a 2-pound or a 1.5 pound steak. You could totally afford it.
Somebody here said they based most of their diet on pork shoulder because it was $1.60 a pound.
Right.
Yep. So that you don't have to eat ribeye every day. I don't eat ribeye. I like ribeye. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. I like me some ribeye, but I don't eat ribeye every day.
Yeah.
But I've also told people you could eat 2 ribeyes a day for 60 days and find out. That's if I offered you, most people, if I said I will give you $1 million in a suitcase and $20 bills cash to go to jail for 60 days. They're going to jail for 6 days, right? They're just, okay. Like, am I going to get shivved or anything? That'll be like a regular jail. You won't be like with the hardcore guys or anything. You'll be fine. You'll eat crappy lunches and stuff, and you'll be bored and you'll play solitaire. But you go to jail 60 days. Here's $1 million cash. You're going to jail. So you can eat steak for 60 days and change your life. And if you decide it didn't work, you can go back.
Yeah,
but I found it to be a very one-way process. And you keep using a word, I think it might have been Michaela that you were talking about earlier that said this. There was a documentary Ken Berry was in, and she said something to the effect of, I don't call it cheating because cheating is something that benefits me. So like if I cheat on a test and I get an A, I get ahead. Right. If I'm an athlete and I use steroids and I build my muscles up and I'm a football, I can push the other guy down, it benefits me. If I eat something that's crappy, I'm not cheating, I'm harming myself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I found that to be kind of profound. When I watch stuff like that, I don't hear a lot of things that I think are really profound. That was kind of profound. It was a different way to angle it because then you're less likely to do it, I guess.
Right. A lot of it is totally a state of mind. 100%. A lot is just implement it because people always say, how do you start? Super easy. Cook meat and eat it. That's literally how you start, right? Eat till you're full, right? And then you're not going to snack. And that's how you start the process.
I would say this too. Also, the Instapot. Since we are a family of 8, it is a lot of meat that we do go through. We go through 1 cow a month.
Yeah.
To put it in perspective. 4 to 500 pounds of beef a month. So
salute. That's
So anyway, the Instapot is where it's at. And also chuck roasts. Even though we do grow our own beef, in between selling our own beef and then harvesting our own beef, there are certain weeks that we actually have to go out to the grocery store and pick up some beef just to carry us through a couple days until we get our beef from the butcher shop.
Yeah, our last 2 months, we were so aggressive marketing it. We because we
all your own supply.
Yeah, we sold our own supply. It's exactly.
So the chuck roasts have been amazing, though.
Oh yeah,
take 2 or 3 of those bad boys and you shove them in the Instapot with some butter and salt and pepper. Yeah. Those things are amazing. Also,
you guys know about Denver steak and chuck eye, right?
No.
Okay, so when those chuck roasts are on sale, they usually bust them off through about 3 or 4 inches thick.
Yeah.
And they just take that whole chuck and they just boom, 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 boom. Mm-hmm. Well, that first cut, you'll know it when you see it, there'll be this thing that looks a lot like a ribeye on one side of it. And there'll be this really beautifully marbled piece on the other. If you take one of those and just basically, you might need a knife a little bit, but you pull it apart, that chuck eye is like the poor man's ribeye. And I personally think they taste better. And that other piece, you cut that up, that's called a Denver steak. Now, when you go, like when they have it on sale, like 1 out of 5 of them will be that first piece. And a lot of stores now, because they're getting money for the chuck eyes, are taking the eyes out. But that's a cool little hack. And then the other thing is you can take that Denver steak and either make steaks out of it, or you can cut it in strips and treat it like, which is kind of what you're doing with the Instapot. Treat it like short ribs.
Yeah.
If you braise it, it tastes just like short rib.
Yeah. And also,
most of the restaurants you go to, you get braised short ribs. It's chuck.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Also, the big thing that's been helping out too, that is a real treat, is we got a big old pit ball smoker. And my brother James is a absolute beast on the smoker, and he put a gigantic 18-pound brisket in there and smoked it for 9 hours.
And covered it in bacon.
And covered it all in bacon.
So incredible.
It was beyond good. And then the next morning we had it for breakfast, and it was even better. It was so
incredible.
That's a lot of guys now, because brisket's gotten so high. They're usually taking like a chuck roll or a shoulder clod. Yeah, and they're smoking it like a brisket, and it's to me, it's not the same, but it's just as good.
It's
just as good. Yeah.
I have never had a slow cooked, low and slow piece of beef and been like, I don't like that. It's never happened. Like, the worst is good, and the best is incredible.
I know. Yeah.
It's just that steaks are good too, so you don't blow everything. But you guys have reduced your waste too. You say by 75%. Can you talk about that? Because when I get the sustainable objection, again, it comes from 2 places. It's environmentally unsustainable, or it is physically unsustainable. So that's dead. We're done with that discussion. To me, there's nothing more sustainable than beef, because it eats grass. The grass grows back, and the cow eats it again. And the cow craps on the grass, and the grass grows better. The soil gets better. The roots go deeper. We move to perennial. We sequester carbon, yada, yada, yada. Everything you claim you want, this is what a cow does, right? So we've got that. But then, like the waste stream is something I don't think it's talked about a lot, because if you look at most of the waste that's produced in a household, it doesn't come from meat, right?
No.
Anything that's left over with meat. I have these 3 giant things with fur and teeth that run around and protect the property. Exactly. If there is anything I won't eat, they will happily destroy it. Mm-hmm. So there's not a lot of waste stream when you move to this type of diet. The cow eats grass, you eat the cow, poop goes back to the ground. We're done, right?
Yeah. So, we're preppers, and we have a large pantry, and obviously you have lots of canned goods, whether it's glass canning or whether it's cans, right? And then you have these other shelf stable products, whether you're using like coconut milk or whatever. So, we were more
rice,
plant-based, right? And everything comes in a package, right? So you take it out of the package, you prepare your meal, you throw it in the trash can. We used to have a roughly a 18-gallon trash can in our kitchen. You know?
I mean, we used to actually have a 55-gallon trash can.
That's true. We did actually have a full-size real trash can.
We would fill that bad boy up every day.
Yeah. And now we have a very small tote that has a sealable lid that's about less than about 24 inches tall and about 8 inches wide. Yeah. And we fill that up once a week.
Yeah.
Because you either have the vacuum seal stuff on your beef, or it's a paper wrapper, and sometimes the paper wrapper we burn.
Butter wrapper,
or a butter
box or whatever.
So butter wrapper's compost. I mean, really. So the big waste stream is really like, to me, paper and cardboard can be a waste stream, but they really are organic, and I don't mean that in the way the government uses it. It's a living product. It's cellulose that can go back to becoming soil. Plastic, no. And so you have all these people blathering on about sustainability and what have you. And then they're blathering on about the straws are going to kill the freaking turtles or whatever over some flawed science experiment by a 9-year-old, because, they never get things wrong. And then they have bags and bags and bags of plastic crap in their house.
Yeah.
And you're like, we used to go, well, I don't know if we'll ever go again. I don't know if they're going to rebuild it. Sanibel Island is like our favorite place to go to. And the bar there went to paper straws with their drinks that are in plastic cups.
Exactly.
And you stand in awe of this lunacy, right? I mean, it is a very low waste process when you look at things like, especially if somebody's doing like a dairy operation or making their own butter. They don't even need wrap for the butter. You put the butter in a glass dish, and then you wash the dish and use it again. There's not a lot of waste stream when you're dealing with animal product.
Nope. I mean, and it was so overly apparent that I was just like, wow, have you, because when you run the trash out to the can, and I've always hated throwing stuff away and creating trash, because it's just like, this can isn't magic. When you put this stuff in there, it goes somewhere, they bury it in the ground, it's there forever. And it would always bother me, so we would try to be conscious of that. And then we make the switch, and I'm like, dude, we should just eliminated 3/4 of all the waste we were generating. Talk about sustainability. That is real, practical, measurable, instantaneous. And it was very self-apparent.
The movie Idiocracy, where they have Garbage Mountain, and that's how Luke's what is his name? Luke, whatever his name is, his character wakes up in the future because his little pod comes down off Garbage Mountain when they dump the last bit on it. And of course, a movie like that takes everything to the extreme. But when you're driving out toward your direction from mine, like heading toward Texarkana from here, there's a place on Highway 30 that you see off to the southern side of the highway, this giant mountain. And it's a landfill, and it's all garbage from Dallas-Fort Worth. And of course, it's all sealed with clay and all. And I don't know what they'll eventually do when they're done with it, but it has a flat top, so it won't go, turn into a garbage avalanche. But it's literally the garbage mountain from Idiocracy.
Yeah.
And it ain't beef. Nobody's throwing steaks in there.
Nope.
Nobody's throwing short ribs in there, or riblets, like I said, well, you don't eat, the dogs will. It also, you state in your show app that it simplified your prepping. I guess pretty obvious, but y'all want to talk to that a bit?
Yeah, so it's funny that we had already developed 7 freezer system, and then we have a couple backup generators. So we kind of set that room up to be ready for power outages, which happen a lot. And but what it did to simplify our prepping, I mean, we were keeping, because we had an active prepper pantry where we would cycle through it every 60 to 90 days, eight family members. I mean, you burn through food, and it's very easy you're burning through massive amounts of carbs, by design. That's just the way it is. And once we eliminated all of those foods, now it's like you're dealing with this nutrient dense thing. You pull it out of the freezer, you throw it in a pan, your prep time's less. There's less weight. I mean, and my wife is just like so elated because she was very active at managing her pantry and keeping it stocked and trying to source things, when toilet paper disappears and all this stuff. But once she streamlined that, we're systematically selling off a lot of our carb stores just because we're probably not ever going to use them. Now, hey, if things get really tough, sure. You know what you want, take what you can get.
Yeah.
But it has super simplified the prepping process. And the other thing it's done is it's condensed our calories down into bite-sized packages, and it's nutrient dense. So, so we're focusing on that, it really streamlines everything.
I would concur. I mean, you make sure that the cow has food and the cow can have babies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it. Like, if there's going to be another cow next year, right, or some more cows next year, and you can keep the breeding going, you got cows. And if you got cows, you got food. And if you got grass, cows have food.
And now,
go ahead.
Now what we're doing with our cows, now that we understand this fat ratio and how important fat is, we've been raising Longhorn, and we've had various other breeds that we've had in our herd. Now we're looking for an optimal type of heritage breed, maybe something like a belted Galloway that grows out in 14 months, has a nice high fat content. What we're finding through research with low line or shorter cows is they live 7 years longer. So our mama cows will have a longer birthing life. They'll live longer. They fatten faster.
Yep.
Their conversion ratio is better. So now we're looking to optimize our herd for production and to get that fat content on the back end that we're looking for.
Yeah. And they take 1/3 less grass too, which is awesome.
Yeah, I've been listening to these guys on called Barn Talk is their podcast, and I just listen to their TikToks. And the one guy was talking about how, and they're both hog farmers, and they were talking about how years ago they used different breeds of hogs because the hog farmer made more money in the past on the fat, on the lard, because people cooked with it, they lubricated, they did everything with it, and they made more money on the fat than the meat. And I think there is something to that. And I don't know, one of the other sustainable challenge things that people have thrown at me is, well, you can't, if you're going to eat 70% of your calories from fat, you're not going to be able to do it because, 70% of the cow isn't fat. You've never cut up a cow then. And you're not familiar with the concept of, we're not talking about volume. We're talking about calories and how much more calorically dense the fat portion is than the lean portion, because it's
I dare you to eat a half a pound of fat.
You won't. You won't. Like, even like we both like butter, obviously, right?
Yeah.
But I always tell people, like, you'll sit down, you'll tell me I'm going to clog my arteries eating butter, right? When I'm dropping some, like, I'll make like a compound butter with like black pepper, sage, and garlic. I'll take a big pat of that and throw that on top of my seared ribeye. You're gonna die. And then that person will turn around and eat a whole stick of freaking butter wrapped up in bread.
Right.
And I'm like,
exactly.
you'll never eat that stick of butter without the bread. And that's something like when people are asking about snacks and all, a lot of times what a person will say is, well, I feel hungry. I want a snack. And you say, well, go eat there's some leftover beef. Go eat that. Well, I don't want it. Well, then you're not actually hungry. You have this habit you formed.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And this is why, like, people will sit around, they'll eat a meal at a restaurant. They're all full. Oh, I can't eat anymore. Waiter comes over with the dessert card. Oh, I could eat that.
Yeah.
Right? And it's because we're wired for this, because you didn't used to go to the Piggly Wiggly or Albertsons to get your food. You had to go out and get it. And high density carbohydrate sugar before agriculture, exceedingly rare, very seasonal, and very highly available before fall. To put, like, it was a natural thing for us as a survival, like a bear. You put fat on and you lean out through the winter and then you put it on again. And this was also like a vitamin D battery that we had. Well, now we can eat whenever we want, but we still have this innate hardwired thing. And then the other thing that's really rare in nature, high fat and high carbohydrate at the same time.
Right.
This is almost never, you almost never see that pre-agriculture. So ancestrally, we're not supposed to eat that way.
Sure.
We're just not. But if you look at like all the crap people eat, it's not just high carb, it's high fat. And then even worse, now, at least like when my grandma did it, it was lard, right? Or butter in the cake, right? And now it's seed oils in the cake that's GMO modified grain. And then it's laden with toxins, and we wonder why we have chronic disease in our country.
Yeah, seed oils with no long-term track record of anything but just disease and disaster, and seed oils completely and totally unsustainable, right? Completely and totally GMO, toxic, as far as even production and distribution in plastic bottles and the whole nine. I mean, everything about seed oils is just like toxic waste.
Oh, it is. And it's not just the oils too. It's even the grains. So like, and I learned early on as I was studying permaculture, just stop questioning Bill Mollison when he said something like just it is, or he wouldn't say it. But this is one that when I heard, I didn't believe it. And I had to do research, and he was right. He said that like all the way up until the 20s and even the 30s, and far back as we had the ability to test, wheat in the United States and in much of Europe had to be over a certain percentage of protein, or it could not be sold for human consumption.
Wow.
And I'm like, wow. And then he's like, and we didn't harvest the way we did. He said, if you see the old imagery of like all the wheat standing in sheaves in the field, and you think that that was something that they just did because that's how they did it, it wasn't. When you stack all that dried grain together, if you go in there a couple days in and put your hand in there, it'll be warm. It ferments. And that wheat had to be over a certain protein, had to be harvested at the right time, and had to be fermented in the field in those sheaths before it was threshed, or it wasn't for people to eat. Wow. Now, I still think a ribeye is better than that, but that shows you how far we've come. And not that, we're talking 100 years.
Exactly.
We've left that. And that was, again, one of those Bill Mollison things. You're like, oh, shit, the old man's crazy. And you go look at it. If you dig long enough and hard enough, you're like, oh, okay, Bill. And like I said, Bill wore you out. Jeff Lawton, his main protege, said the same thing. He just wore you out with facts where you're just like, okay, I give up. I quit, The other thing is like just the ancestral appropriateness. Like we were saying, if you go back prior to modern agriculture, which is about 10,000 years old now, meaning we plow fields and plant one thing, there's no way you're going to survive on carbohydrates.
Right.
It's survival food only. People always bring up Native Americans and acorns. I'm like, so you've never detanninized acorn before? Because if you do it, you'll see that it would be something you would only do because you needed a emergency fallback, because it is a laborious process, because the highest quality acorn for a human to eat still is incredibly bitter if a human tries to eat it. So there's this, it's like 5 to 8 washings to detanninize this, acorn flour. So stuff like that was not really heavily used. Like the places people ate a lot of vegetation was like in the tropics. Like the further you go from the equator, the more carnivore the ancestral diet is. And the number one thing, I did a ton of research a couple of years ago, and you think it's all, buffalo and spears and stuff. The number one thing that settlements ate as we began to create settlements was shellfish.
Right. Yeah.
Which is high in fat and cholesterol, by the way, and almost no carbs. And it's because I don't know if you've ever hunted mussels and oysters, but they don't run away.
No, they don't. Very easy. Yeah.
I mean, whoever ate the first one was brave, but once you see somebody else do it, they taste pretty good, right? Like the first person that ate a raw oyster, I got to say, gave humanity a gift. Because I wouldn't do it if nobody else did. Like, hey, look at this. It's a big booger. Eat it. Nah, man. Billy eat it. Billy only ate it. He goes, that's pretty good. Cascade event. Like, this is just ancestrally how we ate. But you also mentioned that on top of everything else, reducing waste, making prepping easier, health improvement, it's also helped make you guys cash flow positive. Is that because your supply keeps getting drained by your customers?
Yeah. We because of this microprocessor and the ease in and out, we put it out there. We said, hey, if you're in the Northeast Texas area, check out our website, put down a deposit. We'll email you with, when the processing and we'll meet up for and that's what's even been greater than being cash flow positive is getting to meet our customers and hearing their story. And so many of them that are going carnivore, changing their diet, starting to like homestead and be self-sufficient. But it was so incredible. We've developed some other products. We have a website with like honey and coffees and teas and different things. Because of the fruit trees in the fall, we have something called a food farce in a box where we sell cuttings that you can root. But, these are all just like ancillary things that we were trying to create cash flow. But now that we sell the beef, we're selling it in quarters, halves, or wholes. And we do a bulk pickup. So we all meet like after it's processed and ready. So it reduces our cost and it increases our profit margin where we're making a real net positive cash flow.
Yeah, we're actually able to afford buying hay for the winter for all our cows. We're actually able to pay for the rabbit manure and different things, different supplements that we get sprayed on the fields and grass seed and different things that I want to start exploring more with on our fields and everything like that, and just trying to grow our topsoil over there, which has been deplenished over several decades and hundreds of years. So because everybody around us uses Roundup and herbicides and pesticides, and we haven't ever done it. And all we do is once or twice a year we do cut down our goat weeds, and we just got our goat weeds cut down for the second time this year, and it's perfectly fine. The longhorns aren't bothered by it. Also, to increase our fat with our longhorns, we put out a mini Hereford bull out there, but we're still playing around with what type of beef cows we want to get. But I'm pretty much dead set on the belted Galloways for our next herd. We just got a 40-acre lease, and we're going to be starting to get that all ready. And we would like to get our herd size up to about 36 mama cows, so we can produce about 3 cows a month.
Yeah. So, and if you want to talk about our lease that we were able to procure, it's fascinating because, people say I don't have the land, and obviously now for some reason, land in Texas is at a minimum $10,000 an acre. Or what have you.
It's ridiculous.
It's so ridiculous.
You're talking to a guy. I bought my first house in my 20s in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. 3-bedroom, 2-bath. It was a subdivision house, but it was a good sized lot. $84,000.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm old, but I'm not that freaking old. I'm not a boomer for God's sake. Right? I'm only a few years older than you are. And you look at it now and just go, this is dumb. This is too many people. Like, stupid. I know I want people to walk to freedom, but stop coming here from California. Or if you do, check the real estate prices before you buy something.
Right.
Like, don't like, oh my God, it's only $300,000. Yeah, it was 150 last year.
Right. Exactly.
Stop it. Yeah, but leasing land is a hell of a way to go. Because how much land do you guys actually own versus how much do you lease?
So right now we own about 50, about 50 acres. And we've procured that over the past 10 years, kind of bootstrap. And we were able to lease 40 friends of ours. They have about 110 acres and they just bought it. Yeah, they just bought it. They run a couple cows, but we went out there and we met with them and we said, hey, you know, this is pasture. You know, you want to maintain your ag exemption for tax purposes. You know, if we would work the fence of maybe add some fencing or cross fencing and do all this and put cows out here, you're going to continue to qualify for your ag. You know, we're going to run cows and we'll work out like a barter deal. I mean, in essence, we're leasing that land for nothing. You know, we're going to run some fence and different things, and it's going to count as, you know, we're basically leasing 40 acres for about $2,000 a year, with any type of improvements we do to it are going to count against our rent. Yeah. So, I mean, relatively speaking, we're leasing the land for sweat equity. Yeah. At 40 acres, you know, that has a real current market cash value of $400,000.
Has a pond on it and a creek on it too.
Yep. Yep. Multiple water sources, and it's relatively costing us nothing but effort. Yep.
Yeah,
so there are.
Go ahead.
Yeah, there are solutions like that where, you know, just thinking like if we had to buy 40 acres right now, it would cost us about $400,000, and then it would cost us probably about $15,000 to fence it and put the appropriate gates and everything. And
I've learned the hard way. You don't get to deduct that all in 1 year. You have to depreciate that across time. But when I'm leasing land and I'm installing temporary infrastructure, I have full-on expenses on that Schedule F.
Yep, that's exactly right.
And that's huge. And so what I tell people is, if you really want to do this, now be sure you really want to do this.
Right.
Because it is work, it is an investment, it is time consuming to a degree. And I agree with you. Farming cattle, ranching cattle is less time consuming than, you know, pasturing chicken. I guarantee you it is. But there is a commitment to it. But drive around and look for a big open space with grass that doesn't have cattle on it, or has like 2 cows standing under one tree and there's 40 acres. Go find out who owns it. And that stuff's sitting there idle. He's probably paying somebody to bush hog it a few times a year.
Mm-hmm. Yep, you're right.
He does want to maintain his exemption, right? Go look for the guy that has no cows and a bunch of round bales sitting there rotting. That dude is putting them round bales there to rot because his hay's crap and he knows it, but the ag guy comes around once every year and goes, oh, he's growing hay, checks it off, and he keeps his exemption. Don't talk to somebody like that and say, look, I won't put cows on your property. I'll manage them, and I'll pay you.
Yeah.
Because even with his ag exemption, he's paying taxes.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. So I'm basically saying I'll pay your taxes and make your land better. And if you don't like me, throw me out.
Right.
And then don't get yourself thrown out. I've also seen some of like Joel Salatin's videos where he's talking about how like I can basically turn 40 acres into 80 by putting this temporary fencing and stuff in and putting in stock tanks so that one stock tank serves 4 paddocks. And if you got a pond, you put in a pump and pump water to your stock tank. And like all of a sudden they're able to put more animals on the same amount of land. And if something happens with the lease, all the infrastructure is basically portable except a few things. And the farm is not the land. The farm is the brand, the animals, and the customer base. And this is where I think many people don't understand. Farming is a business, and it has to be treated like a business. And when you see it that way, you don't even really want to own that much land. I think one of the best ranchers I know, now he's gone all to sheep because he's just determined as he's getting older, it's easier to deal with smaller animals, is Greg Judy. And he's managing like 3,500 acres. He owns 80. And he only owns 80 because one of the guys that he was leasing 60 from when he died willed it to him. His actual homestead's on 20 acres, and he's managing 3,500 acres in Missouri.
Wow. Yeah.
And he's like, no, I don't want to own 3,500 acres. I have to pay for it all. And when they asked him, Justin Rhodes did an interview with him, and he was asking him, like, why doesn't he do sheep to produce wool? And he's so matter of fact. He's like, so let me explain to you. It costs more money to pull the wool off the sheep than you get for the wool. Why in the hell would you do that?
Right.
Yeah.
And you just have nothing, right? You know, you just don't have anything at that point. Like, well, no, that doesn't make any sense. I wouldn't do that. You know, and maybe a small operation could make some money on wool, but when you're dealing with the number of animals he's dealing with.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point. You know, so much of ranching and agriculture, right, where we've monoed everything out, right? Like even standard ranching, you know, you run so many cows because you need to run 600 head because you need this many calves because they're going to get this much at the sale barn, right?
Yep.
And you're doing it in this conventional fashion, whereas if there was a microprocessor, this is the kind of stuff that Texas Slim, I know you had Texas Slim on.
Yeah.
He's working on creating this network of microprocessors. And all that's going to do is make the average rancher truly profitable. And we've just experienced that. Here we are. We're a family of 8. We try, fail, adjust. We read a lot, we listen a lot, we ask lots of questions, but we don't truly know anything. We're not experts in anything. And we've just, opportunity met some preparedness. You know, we had some cows, this opportunity popped up, this microprocessor popped up. Hey, we could sell a cow. And we offered it. We made an offer to the market and it was like, yeah, hey, we want that. Right.
Yeah.
And now people that really don't know that much that are just trying, all we're doing is trying.
Yep.
And we're turning a profit. And now we're bootstrapping. We're going to cash flow, expand. The boys bought an F-350. They bought a 24-foot stock trailer,
gooseneck trailer,
installed the recessed hitch themselves, did all the, they do all that stuff themselves. They round the cows up themselves. We have horses, so they cowboy a little bit. They round the cows up. They move them, they transport them, they take them to the processor. And so we're developing.
We're actually doing a beef pickup today. So that I had to stay home and Mom had to go with James and Buddy. And that's actually happening right now.
Yeah. So we're making money right now. And we're developing children that are autodidacts or polymaths or whatever. And they just learn, hey, we want to try this. Okay. They got a mobile. Yeah. They got a mobile sawmill. They bought that with their own money from the YouTube channel. They're milling wood right now. They were milling wood yesterday.
Yeah, milled up 5 or 6 logs, and we converted our manual mill that you would have to push by hand, and now it's remote controlled because we mounted a winch on it and a DC electrical converter on it, and then you can adjust the speed and timing and everything like that. So instead of spending like $50,000 on some crazy fancy sawmill, we spent like 1/5.
And I just want to get the word out for the future.
Yeah,
we're trying to be the solution, raise the solution. You know, your episode yesterday about the intentional destruction of Western society. I mean, our intention with life is to literally be the opposite of that. So
absolutely, I just heard more solutions in 3 minutes from you than I've heard any politician give in 3 hours.
Exactly. Be the change.
That's simple, right? Like all this bullshit, and like, okay, look here. You take the cow, you put it on the grass, you eat the cow, you sell the cow, you make money, you don't pay as much in taxes, you improve the land, you grow trees, you mill the sawmill, you use the sawmill to mill the lumber so you can produce, you grow more trees. Cows like trees because they give you shade. You can grow mass trees that help feed the cows. Like it cascades. It just continues to cascade. Because I think the sawmill thing, that's one of the best investments a person can make. I saw a pretty high-end one at Self-Reliance Festival last year. And I was like, man, I see why some people that don't have the money to buy one, or they don't want to be in that business or do that thing, but they have land with timber on it and they want to build, they just hire somebody to bring it in and mill for them.
Yep. And they have the mobile kit and they do mobile milling.
That's what we do.
Yep.
Mobile milling.
Boys do all that stuff.
And what was the cost of y'all's mill, if you don't mind?
Cost of our mill in all, like all said and now I just bought the mobile sawmill package. All said and done, it was about $10,000.
Yeah.
Because
with the mobile kit.
Because
that's not bad at all.
The sawmill was about 5 to 6, and then the mobile trailer unit with an extra like 5-foot track on it, so we can mill up to like 16-foot long lumber on a mobile unit. Yeah, it's about $10,000.
And at the time they bought it from Woodland Mills, they had to pay for it in advance, and it was like a 6 or 8 month lead time.
Yeah.
So they had to shell out like $6,000 and then wait for like 8 months for them to deliver this,
which was a blessing in disguise, because all of the prices on there have skyrocketed.
Yeah,
because
the guy that had the one in Tennessee I asked him, he says about $60,000.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah,
but
so
it was almost completely automated.
Yeah.
Like he was just sitting there running like joysticks.
Yeah.
Picking the trees up and rotating them, and
that's
crazy.
Yeah, and I watched him go through just a pile of stuff in about half an hour, and it was like I was like a kid watching another kid play a video game.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm gonna make a 4x4 out of this piece, and I'm gonna cut some and just flowing through it, and it was like, this is one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I do think it's an incredible opportunity, because there's a lot of, as expensive as land has gotten, the kind of land, like ag land and stuff, people that want to live just in a homestead or whatever, there's a lot of land that's uncleared.
Yeah.
And people see that as a detriment. That is an asset if that can be turned into lumber that can build a structure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think we're going to have to start thinking this way, because things are getting stupid expensive. And I mean, my wife and I just extended the lease on our truck because the cost of buying it is stupid. Like when and I've dealt with the same guy, so he knows I'm not pulling his leg or nothing. I'm like, you give me a decent deal on it, I'll buy it and convert it to a purchase. He said, we want $27,000 for it. I said, no problem. He goes, well, the payment on that's going to be $540 for 72. Stop. We'll just extend the lease, and I'll figure out something else in 6 months from now. Like, I'm not even. You don't have to say another word. He said, well, I know you're upset. I'm like, no, I'm not upset. I'm not mad. You're just doing math. I had my wife check with our bank, and it was like the same payment for 5 years instead of 6 years. And I'm like, no, I'm not taking a 2-year-old vehicle and financing it for 5 years at $500 and something. No. When I can convert the lease and continue to pay, I think we're paying like $240
exactly
on the lease, because it's a 2-year-old lease when they all dropped their pants during COVID. And it's like, I'm thinking, what I could do if I really wanted to, I could write a check and buy the truck. I don't want it that bad, right? Most people can't. And I just did this with my son. My son's in his 30s, and they have good credit, good income. My daughter-in-law wrecked her vehicle. It got totaled. She walked away with a check for $6,000, and they're like willing to put 100% of it down. And we ended up co-signing to get them a reasonable payment on their vehicle. And like, this is going to crush people. That's a vehicle. And these are not people with bad credit. These are not people with poor income levels, but it's just crushing, like, trying to raise a family and all. He was like so excited when he figured out how much money he could get for his house. So he figured like, well, what can you buy? And basically you can buy the same house with a higher payment. That's what you can buy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. These interest rates are going to be unreal, and they're claiming that they're going to cut rates, and I don't know what that's going to do with hyperinflation. I mean, it's going to be an interesting future.
There's a point where they have to pivot, but when people tell me what's soon, I'm like, so you're younger than me, so you don't remember the 80s, and you don't remember people paying 18% on mortgage.
Yep. Our first mortgage was in 2000, and it was 9.99%.
Yep. My first house, I think the mortgage rate on it was like 7.5%. And it's not far off that right now. So it's not like the interest rate is unreasonably high. They cut it so low, they force the underlying price up, and then when you bring the interest rate back, the cost of ownership is ridiculous. Because like I said, I had no problem with the price of the truck. I had a problem with the financing of the truck. Yeah. I'm like, dude, I'm in my 50s. I'm like 10 points from a perfect credit score. Wow. This is the 4th vehicle that I financed with you people. How is this a thing? And Barry, our guy's just like, I'm sorry. I'm like, you don't have to apologize. I didn't ask you, why is it your fault? I asked you, how is this a thing? Like, how are we doing this? And he's like, this is what I'm stuck with everybody right now. And he said, our lot's still half empty. We're still selling vehicles like this. And it's because people have to.
Yeah.
Like if you're a regular person with a regular job, you have to have a car.
Yeah.
Yep.
You have to. Like, this is not the Netherlands. You can't just jump on a train and go to work anywhere, especially in Texas or Nebraska or Florida or something. You know, most people drive 30, 40 minutes to work.
We just had a neighbor, you know, our van broke down. He gave us a ride home in his quad cab King Ranch. And this was
F450.
Yeah, this was $110,000 truck. He was a hot shotter, so that was what he did for work. It was a 2022. He had put 150 or 60,000 miles on it, and he had went back to the oil field, and he's like, man, I got this truck with a $1,400 payment. When he was hot shotting, his insurance was $2,500 a month. Right now, he's changed professions. He's still got this truck payment.
Yeah,
I mean, how unsustainable is this? It's so.
People are buying Ford pickups for what you could buy a freaking Lamborghini or a Ferrari for 12 years ago.
Yeah,
you're
right.
Think about it that way.
Yeah.
Like, you see a dude with a Ferrari or something, you're like, wow, man, this dude's rolling. And then you got rednecks driving around in pickup trucks that cost as much as that thing did a little more than a decade ago.
Yeah.
We bought our fixer-upper homestead on 5 acres about 10 years ago for $77,000. And guys are rolling in trucks that cost more than that.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. People are buying pickup trucks for more than my first house.
Yeah.
I mean, mobile homes are expensive. I don't mean necessarily busted up, but I mean, like, you used to be able to go out to, like, if you were going to live in a mobile home, you go and show me the best, biggest, baddest ass thing you have, like premium everything. And they would show you something for like 135, and you go, do you have anything? No, that's it. That's the most we have, you know. And now you can't buy a freaking single wide for that. It's it's crazy what's happened. And you guys are talking about solutions to this: lease land, grow animals, eat the animal, sell the animal, right? And then start building out other revenue streams, like you guys with the sawmill. What are some other plans that you guys have?
Well, also, with us boys, we started our own construction company too.
Cool.
So that's been doing really, really good. Fantastic. And we only have one ad for it, and it keeps us super busy. So
on Craigslist.
It's like it keeps us plenty busy. I'm kind of scared to make signs and start putting out our cards, but I already am. But
because you'll run into what the problem is, or the problem is that, like, if I had more business, I could hire more people. But when you hire people, you find out most people suck.
They're terrible.
Yeah,
exactly.
They're awful. You got to hire 3, immediately fire 2, so the other one's terrified. Right? And then you torture him, and if he makes it 6 months, then you hire another 3. That's the only way you can do it.
Yeah.
So you actually should have a couple people you can hire just to fire. Like, they have another job or something, and they just show up, and like the end of the first day, you're like, get the hell out of here. And the other one's like, oh my God. It's like the only way to, like, incentivize. And that doesn't even work anymore, I don't think.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah. And the guy that's perfect is the guy that has an entrepreneurial bent. And the problem is they eventually leave and go do their own thing.
Yeah.
You can find, 1 in 100 will be that guy. He'll treat your business like it's his own, but he doesn't want the hassle of running a business.
Exactly.
And when you find that guy, you have to, like, treat him like a little demigod, like, like whatever you need, take care of him. And that way you can throw him helpers and he can run a job for you. One of my best friends had a guy like that working for him, and his name was Toby. And this was a guy took off with a truck down on a job by the border, went into Mexico, no idea where he went. And my buddy's like, I need the truck back. And 9 hours later, Toby drove the truck back onto the site. Like, found a truck in the middle of nowhere, Mexico, went and got it, and basically had to, like, put a gun to somebody's head to get the truck back. And, like, you don't get a lot of those. No. There are not a lot of those out there, man. What are some other plans you have for the homestead?
Mainly just building all of our houses on the land.
Cool.
We're really excited to do that. And another project that we're about to finish up is our firewood station, like a shed, actually. The past couple of years of burning firewood have been kind of rough for us, and it's a big learning experiment. And we've had it stacked up in rows and different things, but during the winter months, it's always just a little bit more. There's a good bit more rain and different things like that, and randomly snow. And in those colder conditions, it makes it really hard to burn firewood. So we're going to have we have a almost covered shed. We have to put the tin up on it. But we're going to store all of our firewood in there. So prepping all the firewood for this year. Other plans, mainly getting that 40-acre lease
Ready.
good and ready, bush hogging it down, getting
sourcing the cows,
sourcing all the cows. Yeah. So just slowly but surely
expanding the beef business.
The beef business.
See, what the takeaway for that for people that want to do this is y'all didn't go do all this at once. You did a thing, you mastered it, and then you did another thing, and then you mastered that. And then you learned when you screwed up, and then you fixed it. And then when it was stabilized and profitable, then you do another thing. And then there's a point where you stop doing new things, and you do the thing that makes money, you do more of it.
That's what you do. Yep.
Yeah, because there's people, I'm going to do this and that and this and that. So you're going to do nothing in the end because you're going to run around like a one-legged man in a butt kicking contest. You'll never finish anything. I'm bad about that. I'm a starter. I like to experiment with stuff and play with stuff.
It's easy to start projects, Yeah. It's super easy.
But bolting them down is the key to success.
Yeah.
So then with all this, though, you guys did start a podcast. What made you do that?
Well, mainly because we were getting censored so dang bad on YouTube.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we have like 5 or 6 strikes now on YouTube, and we were able to get them perfectly just right enough that they didn't totally vaporize the channel. Yeah. Actually, Dad just went through YouTube training, and
he got re-educated.
And now,
it's so terrible.
Now magically our warning is going to disappear since he went through YouTube training.
I went through a re-education camp.
Yeah.
And I answered the questions properly.
Good job.
Yeah, that makes me think of there's an episode of The Simpsons where it's like a 1984 thing, but Ned Flanders is the overlord, and they call it re-education. Like
exactly. Why did the Simpsons have to be predictive programming for like everything that happens?
Yeah.
It's so scary.
I was listening to a dude that just got banned, and he said honestly before they banned him, they made him an offer to basically make his channel into like $1 million revenue stream.
Whoa,
but he had to do these certain things. His name's Scott Ritter. He's a former UN's weapons inspector.
Interesting.
And he basically, when he looked at all that they wanted him to do and what they wanted him to not do, he said no. Yeah. And then not long after that, they terminated his channel.
Wow. Yeah, it's because we're trying, we did the Odyssey thing, and then the SEC smashed down on Library Coin and effectively destroyed that, because that was a great option.
Yeah,
I mean, Odyssey was a great option.
Yeah,
LBC was it was great. Yeah, and then they destroyed that. We've tried this Rumble thing. Rumble only heats you if you live stream.
Yeah.
So, and it's just there's no type of organic traction there at all.
You don't make any money on Rumble unless you're dumb and you let them monetize. So I live stream to Rumble, but I also have my channel auto migrate to Rumble. Yeah, and there's a way that you can put all your content on Rumble, and they'll migrate it to your YouTube channel and manage your YouTube revenue for a split for you. I'm sorry, I'm not giving 25% of my YouTube revenue up for you to automatically get it because I said you could have it, because that's all. Right. You're not managing anything. Rumble just doesn't have a good monetization model. That's the problem with Rumble.
Yeah,
but like you said, podcasting has been the one place that largely has been left alone.
Yeah,
I have been through the PP smack from YouTube a lot. I have been to the edge of oblivion myself over the years, and I have never had Apple take down a podcast. And I figure if Apple's not going to do it, nobody's going to. Like the first group I would expect in that space to lay me out would be, and I have not. I mean, I went deep into the COVIDs and to all the stuff, and I immediately got just gobsmacked in the face by YouTube, and Apple did nothing.
Yeah. And for people that are interested in checking out our podcast. It's called The Fearless Podcast. And we're pretty much on every pod player out there.
We're on the Fountain app. I love the Fountain app. I love the stats and being able to communicate back and forth. It is I love the whole model, podcasting 2.0. So yeah, we're on the Fountain app. It's cool.
That's great. And everybody should be. I just had a question come in while you guys were here with me, and somebody wants to know, how do I, like when we do the expert council segments, how do we send sats to the expert council? I'm like, tell them to get their ass on Fountain.
Yeah.
That's how. Get them on Fountain, right? Because I can even do, you can do splits as long as somebody has a Fountain account, even if they don't have a podcast. When you have a guest, if they have a Fountain account, you can say, give 30% of all boosts and streams to this guest. But they have to have a Fountain account, or you can't. And it's automatic. It's like when somebody's streaming, it literally splits as it streams. It's not like you have to pay them or anything. And since you never touch the money, you don't have to, something like you have a big hit, you wouldn't have to give somebody a 1099 or whatever. Like it's
right.
You mean a fence post, right?
That is cool.
Yeah. Podcasting seems to be the last realm of total freedom for now, anyway. And we'll see. Hopefully, it'll last. Let's tell guys about your website. I had your YouTube channel up. Let me get that up again. Definitely, people should subscribe to that. They have all kinds of cool content. You guys can see I subbed and.
Yeah, we've been trying to keep our channel diverse because YouTube loves to put us like pigeonhole people, and they've tried before. So we tried to cover kind of everything, different topics that are going on in the world. And then the carnivore diet. I love making that thumbnail of Bill Gates holding a chainsaw. Thought that would be awesome. I love Photoshop. So I was like, Bill Gates holding a chainsaw. Let's go ahead and do some.
I'm surprised this one's still up. Lessons from the Unabomber.
Yeah, for real.
Somebody will shriek right now. I didn't say he was the greatest guy in the world. I said some of the things he said made sense.
Yep.
They make more sense today than they did when he said them, too. I'm just saying,
Yeah. And then on the TexasBoys.com, that's our little family's farm shop, and we sell unvaccinated, unpasteurized honey, and that's all locally sourced here from Texas. And then also we have our locally roasted coffee, several different coffee lines. And then also we have our organic CBD coffee and organic Lion's Mane coffee. And then also with our candles, we have non-toxic candles too.
Very, very cool, guys. You guys are into plenty of stuff. I don't know if you need to do more. Like you said, keep doing what works and do it better and do more of it because it's awesome. I will make sure that there are links to your website, your YouTube channel, basically everything you sent me. I think I have your Rumble on there. Anything you sent, I have already in the audio notes for people watching the video. If you're watching it live, there's a link down there. If you click it right now, it won't work. We're not done yet. About 30 minutes from the time the live ends, anytime after that, you click that link, you go over to where the audio is available. There'll be links to everything that they have, everything that I talked about today and more. And guys, man, I really appreciate you being with us today. It was a pleasure talking to both of you. And let me say that to you, young man, you present yourself very well for your age. I mean, you should be proud. You, sir, TD, should be proud of him. And I know you are.
Thanks, Jack. Appreciate it. Thanks for having us. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed that discussion. I know I did. I want to remind you real quick here at the end. If you like what we do and you want to help support us, one of the ways you can do that is do your online shopping starting at tspaz.com. That's TSPAZ, tspaz.com. Very easy to remember. Today's item of the day is the Streamlight Micro Stream flashlight. I really love this thing because it uses AAA batteries, which are AA and AAA are like the 10 and 20 or 12 and 20 gauge shells of shotguns. They're everywhere. You can scrounge them, etc. But I recommended the regular MicroStream, which uses 2 batteries for like 10 years. And Nicole Sauce told me she didn't like it. I was like, why not? She goes, well, it works great and all, but do you know that girl jeans have non-pockets? I'm like, the heck's a non-pocket? Apparently girl jeans have very shallow pockets. So she carried this little compact light. And I'm like, well, I don't like O-Light, which is what she was carrying, but I like Streamlight. So I found this thing. And then when I got this one, I figured I had one more really cool feature that the regular one didn't have. If you look at the clip on that light, you'll notice there's a regular like pocket clip or, type thing. But then there's like, it bends back over and there's a second little clip. You know what that does? It goes right on the brim of a cap. So you have a headlight and a flashlight in one. And that's really cool. Very bright, very cool. But the reason that I brought it around today isn't because it's just cool, because it's always in the Streamlight category. It's on sale for 48% off today. So if you've been needing to pick up a new EDC light, this is the one for you. Again, I've been recommending his Big Brother for 10 years. I've been recommending this one for about 48% off. We talked about how expensive things are getting today. Never turn down a good deal when it's available. So check out this light. Check out tspaz.com. Consider becoming a member of the Survival Podcast, member support brigade as well. That's the main way I pay the bills around here. Over the weekend, I ordered some new cannabis product from Akira Botanicals, one of our discount vendors. I saved $55 on one order. That's a $50 a year membership. We have over 70 supporting vendors, so it's a membership that pays for itself. So do consider supporting us with that. We are, like we mentioned, Fountain. We are on Fountain. You can boost us there. You can stream sats to us. That's another way you can support us. And, of course, I'm on Nostr, so we can zap each other on Nostr. So check out our links in the audio notes for all that good stuff with that. I appreciate you all tuning in today. Tomorrow will be a Just Jack show. Not even sure what we're going to talk about yet. Then we'll have an expert council show to round out the week. Take care, guys. I'll catch you again tomorrow with another episode.